Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone who joins us from around the world. We're so glad you're here.
It is a pleasure to be here.
This is Andrew and Renee. Welcome to the Stack series. Today, we are exploring the complex, often controversial, and rapidly evolving world of testosterone, male aging, and hormone therapy.
It's a massive topic. And honestly, it's one that's surrounded by more noise, more, let's say, marketing, and just more general confusion than maybe any other area of endocrinology right now.
Absolutely. You really can't escape it, can you?
Yeah.
You scroll through social media, you walk into a gym locker room, you listen to pretty much any podcast these days, and testosterone is either the punchline or the product being pushed. It's everywhere. It has become this massive cultural buzzword, and it's being sold as this ultimate cure-all for aging, or the secret sauce for success and a shortcut to vitality.
It certainly has. But what's really fascinating to me is that while the cultural conversation has been getting louder and, let's be honest, a bit chaotic, the medical landscape has actually been shifting beneath our feet in a very, very disciplined way. We're recording this in February 2026. And if you just look back at the last 12 to 24 months, it's been incredible. We've seen massive changes in regulation, in safety data, and even in our fundamental understanding of how this hormone works.
That's exactly why we wanted to tackle this today. Our mission really is to move past all the bro science and the marketing hype.
Yeah.
We want to understand the actual physiology of the aging male, look at the definitive safety data that has recently emerged, some of which is genuinely surprising, and sort of navigate that very tricky ethical line between legitimate medical treatment and this idea of optimization.
Precisely. We really need to distinguish between treating a pathology, a real disease state, and just chasing a number on a spreadsheet because an influencer told you to.
Okay, so let's lay out a roadmap for everyone. We're going to structure this conversation into four main parts to really get our arms around it.
Sounds good.
First, the foundations, what is actually happening inside the body? What do we think we know? Second, the active debate. This is where we'll get into the safety controversies that have, frankly, scared people for a decade.
The big ones.
Exactly. Third, the frontiers, the new science on lifestyle, brain health, things that might change everything.
Yeah.
And finally, the implications, what all of this means for society, for ethics, and for specific groups of people.
A sound structure. Let's begin at the beginning.
Let's do it. Part one, foundations. To even begin to understand why testosterone matters, we have to understand where it comes from. It's not just, testicles make a hormone, right? There's a whole chain of command.
Correct. It's a beautiful, elegant system. We call it the HPG axis. That stands for the hypothalamic-pituitary-gonadal axis.
HPG.
HPG. And you can think of it like a very sophisticated corporate command center, or maybe a better analogy is a thermostat. It's all about regulation.
Okay, so break that down. Where does it start?
It starts in the brain. The hypothalamus is the CEO. It's the command center. It pulses out a signal, a hormone called GnRH.
Gonadotropin-releasing hormone.
Exactly. That signal, that GnRH, it goes to the middle manager, which is the pituitary gland, also in the brain.
The CEO talking to the VP.
Pretty much. The pituitary then gets that message and releases two other hormones, LH and FSH. Luteinizing hormone and follicle-stimulating hormone.
And those are the messengers that go out to the factory floor?
Those are the messengers. They travel through the bloodstream down to the factory floor, the testes. And there, LH is the one that tells specific cells, the Leydig cells, to produce testosterone. FSH is more involved in sperm production, but they work together.
So it's this cascade. Brain signals pituitary, pituitary signals testes make the testosterone. But it doesn't just keep making it forever, right? There has to be an off switch.
Yes, and that is absolutely crucial. It's called a negative feedback loop. When testosterone levels in the blood get high enough, they send a signal back up to the brain, to both the hypothalamus and the pituitary, and essentially say, okay, we're good. Warehouse is full.
Stop sending orders.
Stop sending the orders. And the brain slows down the GnRH and LH signals. It's a self-regulating system that keeps everything in balance.
Now, when we talk about hormones and aging, everyone knows about menopause in women, which is famous for being, a cliff.
Yeah.
The hormones drop off pretty sharply.
Right.
But for men, it's completely different. It's been described as a slow slide.
That is a very, very accurate description. We don't have menopause in the same biological sense. There's no sudden cessation of function. Instead, we have what is sometimes called the andropause, or more clinically, late-onset hypogonadism.
So what does that slide look like in terms of numbers?
The data is pretty consistent. It shows that total testosterone drops by about 1% per year, every year, after you hit age 30 or 40.
Right.
It's a gradual, steady attrition.
1%. It doesn't sound like a lot, but over 20 years, that's a 20% drop.
It adds up. But here's where it gets really interesting and a little more technical, but it's probably the single most important concept for people to grasp. It's not just about the total amount of testosterone you have in your blood. It's about what's actually available for your body to use.
The usable stuff.
The usable stuff. This is a nuance that is so often missed, and it explains why some men feel absolutely terrible despite having quote-unquote normal numbers on a lab report.
So what's the difference?
Okay, so you have total testosterone. That's the sum of every testosterone molecule in your bloodstream. But most of that, the vast majority, is bound up. It's chemically handcuffed to proteins.
Okay.
The main one is called sex hormone binding globulin, or SHBG.
SHBG.
Exactly. And a great way to think of SHBG is like a sponge. When a testosterone molecule is stuck to that SHBG sponge, it can't get into your cells, it can't build muscle, it can't affect your mood, it can't help your libido, it's biologically inactive, it's just floating around, taking up space.
So as we age, that sponge, it gets bigger.
That is exactly what happens. SHBG levels increase as men get older. It's one of the hallmarks of male aging.
Yeah.
So you have this double whammy. Your total testosterone is dropping by about 1% a year. At the same time, the sponge that soaks up the testosterone you do have is getting bigger and more aggressive.
So the amount of free usable testosterone is dropping even faster.
Much faster. Your free testosterone, the bioavailable stuff that actually does the work, that drops closer to 1.3%, maybe even 2% per year.
So a guy in his 50s could look at his lab test, see a normal total number, and his doctor says, you're fine. But because his SHBG is through the roof, his body is actually starving for usable testosterone.
Precisely. That is a scenario we see every single day. And the mechanism for this whole decline, this slow slide, is what we call a double hit. It's failing from the top down and the bottom up.
What do you mean?
You have central failure, which means the brain, the CEO, just sends out weaker and fewer signals over time. The GnRH pulses aren't as strong, and you have peripheral failure. The Leydig cells and the testes, the factory workers, they just get tired. Their mitochondria, the little power plants inside the cells, they become dysfunctional with age. They can't respond to the orders as well as they used to.
So the machinery is just aging at every single level of the chain of command.
That's a perfect way to put it.
So let's talk about how this feels. Because low T is a term that gets thrown around to explain literally everything. If you're tired, it's low T. If you're sad, low T. If you can't find your keys, it must be low T.
Right. It's the modern scapegoat for everything.
But clinically, when a doctor's trying to make a real diagnosis, what are the actual symptoms they're looking for?
This is where we have to be incredibly disciplined, and thankfully we have some good science to guide us. The European Male Aging Study, a huge undertaking, gave us some great clarity here. They identified a specific triad of sexual symptoms that are highly, highly specific to low testosterone.
A triad.
A triad. If you have these symptoms, it's much more likely that the root cause is hormonal and not something else.
And those are...
Number one, and this is the most specific, is the loss of morning erections.
Okay.
Number two is erectile dysfunction in general. And number three is low libido, a significant drop in your desire for sex.
So sexual function is really the canary in the coal mine for this.
It absolutely is. Then you have the much broader, non-specific symptoms, and this is where the confusion comes in.
The gray area.
The huge gray area. We're talking about fatigue, unexplained weight gain, brain fog, mood changes, maybe even feelings of depression.
And the problem is, as you said, those could be anything.
Anything. I love to use the analogy of a check engine light in your car. If that light comes on, it could be a major transmission failure, which in this case would be your testosterone. But it could also just mean you're low on oil, or your spark plugs are bad, or your gas cap is loose.
Right.
In medical terms, that fatigue could be sleep apnea, the brain fog could be a poor diet, the mood changes could be clinical depression, it could just be that you're overworked, you're stressed, you're not sleeping.
That's a crucial distinction. Just because you're tired doesn't mean you need a hormone prescription. It means you need a good workup to find the real cause.
100%. But there are also physical changes, things you can actually see over time.
Right. Things beyond just how you feel.
Yes. Sarcopenia, which is the medical term for age-related loss of muscle mass. Osteopenia, which is the thinning of your bones, making them more susceptible to fracture.
Okay.
and a very specific type of fat accumulation. It's not just any fat, it's visceral fat, that deep, metabolically active belly fat that wraps around your organs.
So we have the symptoms, both specific and non-specific. You go to the doctor, and this is where we hit what you called in the outline the diagnostic quagmire.
Yes.
Because apparently nobody can agree on what low actually means on a blood test.
It is a significant and ongoing point of contention. It's like we have different governing bodies setting different speed limits on the same highway.
So who are the players and what are the numbers?
Well, you have the American Urological Association, the AUA. They generally set the cutoff at 300 nanograms per deciliter, or NGDL. If you are below 300, and you have the symptoms we just discussed, they would say you are hypogonadal.
Okay, 300. That's one number to remember.
Yeah.
But the endocrinologists have a different idea.
They do. The Endocrine Society sets the bar a bit lower, at 264 NGDL, and they add the language that the level must be unequivocally low.
That's a gap of almost 40 points. That's a lot of men who would be considered low by a urologist, but not low enough by an endocrinologist. They're falling into that gray area.
They are. And the crucial context here, the thing you have to ask is, where do these numbers even come from?
Right. What's the reference point?
They're often derived from statistical analyses of populations of young, healthy men in their 20s.
Which brings up the big philosophical question, doesn't it? Is it really fair or even medically appropriate to hold a 65-year-old man to the biological standard of a 25-year-old?
That is the heart of the debate. Some experts argue that an age-related decline is natural, it's a part of life, and we shouldn't pathologize it. Others argue that if that decline causes suffering, disease, and increased health risks like osteoporosis, why wouldn't we treat it, regardless of age?
It's a tough one. But no matter which cutoff you use, the protocol for testing is supposed to be strict, right? You can't just walk into one of these pop-up clinics at 4 p.m., get a quick blood draw, and walk out with a prescription.
You absolutely should not. This is where a lot of the, let's say, less reputable pill mill clinics get it wrong, and it's dangerous.
So walk us through the rules. What does a proper diagnostic workup look like?
Rule number 1, timing is everything. Testosterone levels follow a circadian rhythm. They're highest in the morning, right after you wake up, and they can drop by 30 or 40% by the afternoon.
Wow.
So the test must be done in the morning, typically before 10 a.m., to get an accurate peak reading.
And it's not a one-and-done thing, right? You have to do it twice.
Absolutely. One low test is not a diagnosis. Levels can fluctuate. Maybe you had a terrible night's sleep. Maybe you're getting sick. You need 2 separate morning tests on 2 different days that are both low to confirm a diagnosis.
Okay, morning, 2 tests. What else?
You should be fasting. We know that a big glucose spike, say from eating a big sugary breakfast, can temporarily suppress your pituitary's output of LH, which gives you a falsely low testosterone reading.
So fasting, morning, 2 separate tests. And I assume you have to rule out all the other stuff we talked about.
Correct. That's the foundation of responsible care. Before you ever write a prescription, you ask, does this person have sleep apnea? Are they morbidly obese? Are they a heavy drinker? Is there an underlying illness? Because fixing those things might just fix the testosterone level without a single needle or gel packet.
Okay, so that's a really solid look at the foundations, the machinery, the symptoms, and the very messy business of diagnosis. Now, I want to move into the second part of our discussion, the active debate. Because for the last 10 years, maybe more, there has been this dark cloud hanging over testosterone therapy. The fear that it kills your heart.
This has been the dominant narrative since about 2015. It has shaped everything.
So let's go back in time to 2015. The FDA, the Food and Drug Administration in the U.S., slaps a black box warning on all testosterone products.
Yeah.
For anyone who doesn't know, that is the most serious warning they can possibly give.
It is. It's a huge deal.
And it basically said, warning, may increase your risk of heart attacks and strokes.
Yes. And this wasn't pulled out of thin air. It was based on some retrospective studies, which means looking back at old data that seemed to show a correlation. Men who started testosterone therapy seemed to have more cardiovascular events shortly after. It caused an immediate and massive prescription freeze.
Doctors were just terrified to prescribe it.
Terrified, and patients were terrified to take it. The market stalled, research stalled. It cast a pall over the entire field.
But science doesn't stand still. And the medical community realized they needed a definitive answer. They couldn't rely on looking backward at messy data. They needed a gold standard, forward-looking study.
They needed a randomized controlled trial, a big one.
Enter the TRAVERSE trial.
The TRAVERSE trial is, without exaggeration, monumental. It's a landmark study in this field. It was published in 2023 in the New England Journal of Medicine.
So what did they do? This wasn't a small study.
Not at all. They took over 5,000 men. And these weren't just random healthy guys. These were the men you'd be most worried about. They all had documented low testosterone, and they had pre-existing high risk for heart disease, or they'd already had a cardiac event.
So the highest risk group possible.
Exactly. They put half of them on testosterone gel and the other half on a placebo gel, and they just watched them for years to see what happened.
The moment of truth.
Yeah.
And the result.
The primary finding was non-inferiority.
Okay, what does that mean in plain English?
It means that the testosterone replacement therapy did not cause more heart attacks, strokes, or cardiovascular deaths than the placebo. For those major adverse cardiac events, or MAC, it was found to be safe.
That is huge. That basically overturned a decade of fear and dogma.
It absolutely did. It was a massive sigh of relief for both clinicians and patients. And because of that data, there was a direct regulatory consequence.
Right.
As of February 2025, so about a year ago from our current perspective, the FDA officially removed that cardiovascular black box warning from testosterone products.
Wow. So the warning is gone, but... And there's always a but in medicine.
Always.
They didn't just say it was completely risk-free. They actually took the opportunity to add new warnings based on the TRAVERSE data.
Correct. You could say we traded one big, vague, terrifying fear for 3 specific, understandable, and manageable risks.
Okay, so what are the new warnings? What do we need to watch out for now?
First, atrial fibrillation. The study showed a small but statistically significant increase in the risk of developing an irregular heartbeat. It was about 3.5% in the testosterone group versus 2.4% in the placebo group over the course of the study.
Okay, so a slight uptick in arrhythmia. Manageable, but real. What's number 2?
Acute kidney injury. Again, a slight but statistically significant uptick in the risk there as well.
And the 3rd?
And third, a class-wide warning regarding blood pressure. This wasn't a huge surprise. We've known for a while that testosterone can cause the body to hold on to a bit more sodium in water. For most men, it's a very slight increase, a few points, but it's something that absolutely needs to be monitored.
So the takeaway isn't that it causes a heart attack directly, but that it changes the hemodynamics, the fluid and pressure dynamics in your body, which requires you to pay attention.
That is the perfect summary. It reinforces that this is a real medical treatment requiring ongoing monitoring, not a set-it-and-forget-it supplement you take and never think about again.
Now, another huge debate, another area of fear has been about the prostate.
Oh, yeah.
For years, the doggo was simple. Testosterone feeds prostate cancer. It's like pouring gasoline on a fire. If you give a man testosterone, you're going to give him cancer or make an existing one explode.
That was the belief for decades. And it stemmed from some Nobel Prize-winning research back in the 1940s on chemical castration for prostate cancer. But our understanding has evolved dramatically since then. We now understand the saturation model.
I love this concept. Can you explain the gas tank analogy? It makes it so clear.
I'd be happy to. Imagine your prostate is a car with a gas tank. Testosterone is the gasoline. When the tank is empty, like in a man with very, very low testosterone, the car, or the prostate cells, can't really run. There's no fuel.
Makes sense.
If you start adding a little bit of gas, the engine starts to turn over, the activity increases. But here's the key. The gas tank is very, very small. It gets completely full at a testosterone level of about 250 ng/dL.
Which, based on the numbers we discussed earlier, is actually still in the low range.
Yeah. Very low. Once that tank is full, once all the androgen receptors in the prostate are saturated, adding more gas doesn't make the car go any faster. It just spills over onto the pavement. The prostate literally cannot tell the difference between a testosterone level of 500 and a level of 1,000. It's already at max capacity.
So the idea of giving a man testosterone to get him from, say, 200 up to 600 isn't going to supercharge cancer growth because the receptors were already full or close to it at the low end of normal.
Exactly. And the TRAVERSE trial backed this up beautifully. There was no significant increase in the risk of high-grade prostate cancer in the treated group. Now, to be clear, we still monitor PSA prostate-specific antigen because if there is a cancer there for other reasons, we want to know about it. But the hormone therapy itself does not appear to be the arsonist we once thought it was.
That is a profound shift in thinking and a relief for millions of men. Okay, so we've cleared up some of the big safety debates. Let's talk about the practical side. How do you actually get this stuff into your body? Because the delivery system debate is real. You've got needles, gels, pills now.
It's a very real debate, and it's a matter of pharmacokinetics, how the drug moves through the body over time. And there's no single best answer. It's all about trade-offs.
Let's start with the classic injections, usually testosterone cypionate or enanthate. This is the one you see in movies. It's the gold standard for bodybuilders in a lot of clinics.
It is. It's cheap, it's effective, and it works. But the major downside is that it creates peaks and troughs.
A roller coaster.
A hormonal roller coaster. You inject, and for a few days, your levels might go super physiological way above the normal range. You feel like Superman. But then, as a week goes on, the level drops, and by the day before your next shot, you can crash back down into the hypogonadal range again. That up and down can cause mood swings, acne, and other side effects.
Okay, so to avoid that roller coaster, the next option is transdermal, gels and creams.
Right. With these, you apply a dose to your skin, usually your shoulders or upper arms, every single day. This is great because it mimics the body's natural daily rhythm much more closely. You get stable levels, no peaks, no valleys.
Sounds ideal.
Yeah.
What's the catch?
The catch is transfer risk. If you put that gel on your shoulder and then you hug your wife, or you hold your baby, or you even let your dog lick your arm, you can transfer active testosterone to them.
Which is very bad.
Yeah.
You do not want to inadvertently virilize your partner or your toddler.
You definitely do not. It requires a lot of caution. Then we have the new wave, which is really exciting, orals.
Right. For a long time, oral testosterone was a big no-no.
Yeah.
It was toxic to the liver.
It was incredibly dangerous. But recently, in the last few years, we've seen new formulations approved, like Jatenzo and Kysotrex. And they have a clever design that bypasses the liver. They get absorbed through the lymphatic system in the gut.
So they're safe for the liver, which is a huge step forward.
It is. But
All right.
Remember that blood pressure warning we discussed from the Traverse trial?
I do.
Well, the data suggests that these oral forms seem to carry the highest risk for raising blood pressure among all the delivery methods. So that convenience comes with a very specific caveat that needs careful monitoring.
Okay. And finally, the last major category, pellets, the set it and forget it option.
Yes, this involves a minor in-office surgical procedure. A doctor makes a small incision, usually in the buttock, and implants several small pellets of compressed testosterone under the skin. They dissolve slowly over 3 to 6 months.
The pro is obvious. No daily application, no shots.
Great for consistency and compliance, but the con is significant. If the dose is too high or you have a side effect, you can't exactly take them out easily. You're stuck with that dose until it wears off months later.
So as you said, no perfect delivery system. It's all about a personalized discussion of lifestyle, cost, and risk tolerance.
Medicine always is.
Fantastic. This brings us to our third section, frontiers. This is what I'm most excited about, because we're learning that you might not even need a prescription to profoundly manipulate your hormones. We're talking about lifestyle as a drug.
This is such a powerful and empowering shift in the narrative. We used to think testosterone levels just happened to you, that they were your destiny. Now we know you have a tremendous amount of agency.
Let's start with that 2025 study on fat loss versus TRT. This just blew my mind when I read the abstract.
It was a fascinating and really well-designed study. They took a group of obese men who all had clinically low testosterone. They split them into 2 groups. One group got standard TRT, the other group got no hormones. They just enrolled in an intensive lifestyle program focused on significant weight loss.
And what happened?
The finding was that in a significant number of these men, simply losing a large amount of body fat boosted their natural endogenous testosterone levels more than the guys on actual drug therapy.
That is incredible. So how does that work? What's the mechanism? Why does fat kill testosterone?
It comes down to a sneaky enzyme called aromatase. Aromatase. And this enzyme loves to live in fat cells, particularly that visceral belly fat we talked about. Its entire job is to find testosterone molecules and convert them into estrogen.
So if you have a lot of belly fat, you essentially have a massive 2047 factory that is actively stealing your primary male hormone and turning it into a female hormone.
Precisely. You are literally aromatizing your testosterone away. So when you lose that visceral fat, you shut down the factory. The conversion stops, and your natural testosterone levels have a chance to rebound.
So for a guy carrying an extra 50 pounds with borderline low T, the best and first prescription isn't a needle. It's a calorie deficit and a treadmill.
In many, many cases, yes. Then you have sleep. And we just cannot overstate the importance of this. Your body produces the vast majority of its daily testosterone during REM and deep sleep cycles. That's when the factory is running.
So all the night shift workers, the new parents, the students pulling all-nighters, they're in trouble.
They are in a state of hormonal crisis. The data on this is terrifyingly clear. There was a famous study that took healthy young men and restricted their sleep to just 5 hours a night for 1 week.
Just 1 week.
1 week. Their daytime testosterone levels dropped by 10 to 15%. To put that in context, that is equivalent to aging yourself 10 to 15 years instantly.
That is a terrifying thought. You can chemically age yourself a decade just by binge-watching a new show for a week instead of sleeping.
Essentially, yes. And then, of course, there is exercise. But it's crucial to understand that it has to be the right kind of exercise.
Right, because not all sweat is created equal in the eyes of the endocrine system.
Not at all. Heavy resistance training. We're talking squats, deadlifts, bench presses, big compound movements that tax the whole body. That sends a powerful anabolic signal through the HPG axis to produce more testosterone.
Lift heavy things.
Lift heavy things. However, chronic, excessive, high-volume endurance cardio-like training for an ultramarathon without enough fuel or recovery can actually do the opposite. It can be suppressive. The body goes into a catabolic survival mode, and it dials down reproductive and anabolic functions to conserve energy.
So the prescription is lift heavy, sleep deep, and lose the gut. That's the natural TRT protocol.
That is the foundation upon which everything else should be built.
Let's shift gears from the body to the brain. We usually think of testosterone in terms of muscles, beards, and sex drive. But the brain itself is loaded with androgen receptors, isn't it?
It is absolutely packed with them. In the hippocampus, the prefrontal cortex, key areas for memory and decision-making. And this is a really exciting new frontier, the role of testosterone in cognitive protection.
So what is the emerging data telling us?
Well, the studies are still ongoing, but the emerging data suggests that in men who are truly hypogonadal men with clinically low levels, restoring their testosterone to a normal range can lead to improvements in specific cognitive domains.
Like what?
Things like spatial memory, executive function, and verbal memory seem to benefit.
Spatial memory. You mean like remembering where you parked the car or how to navigate without a GPS?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or rotating an object in your mind. It makes sense from an evolutionary perspective. The hunter-gatherer needs exceptional spatial awareness to survive.
Now, we need to be very clear here. Is this a cure for dementia or Alzheimer's?
Absolutely not. We must be crystal clear. TRT is not a cure for Alzheimer's disease, but it does appear to be neuroprotective. It may help maintain the structure and function of the brain as we age, potentially warding off some of the decline associated with low hormonal states. It's a very active area of research.
It's fascinating. Now, we can't talk about frontiers without talking about the business side of it, the future of optimization. We're seeing this explosion of telehealth. Companies like Huddle, Hone, Peter MD, you see their ads everywhere.
This is the democratization and the commercialization of endocrinology, and it has some very significant pros and cons.
The pros are obvious, right? It's accessible, it removes the stigma. You don't have to take a day off work, go to a doctor's office and look a nurse in the eye and say, I have erectile dysfunction. You can do it all from your phone.
Yes, and that access and privacy is incredibly valuable for a lot of men. But the con, the dark side, is the pill mill risk.
The subscription medicine model.
Exactly. When the entire business model depends on you subscribing to a monthly shipment of medication, there is an inherent perverse incentive to prescribe that medication, whether it's truly indicated or not.
And that's where we see men with perfectly normal levels being put on TRT.
Right. We see men being prescribed testosterone who have levels over, say, 12 millil, which is well within the normal range, and where all the good scientific evidence shows absolutely no benefit to treatment, only potential risk.
And these clinics, their marketing is so clever. They don't talk about treating a disease. They talk about optimization. Like, sure, you're normal, but don't you want to be optimal?
And that is a very dangerous and slippery slope. Optimization is often just a euphemism for using powerful prescription drugs to exceed your natural genetic potential. That's not medicine anymore. That's biohacking or performance enhancement, and it carries a completely different set of ethical and safety considerations.
Which leads us perfectly into our final section, the broader implications. We have to look at the ethics, the economics, and the societal impact of all this.
The biggest implication, the one that sits above all the others, is what we call the medicalization of aging.
It's really a philosophical question, isn't it? Are we treating a legitimate disease called hypogonadism? Or are we just starting to treat aging itself as if it were a disease?
Precisely. If every single man's testosterone is guaranteed to drop as he ages, is that a disease? Or is that simply a feature of being a human? The manosphere on social media, all these influencers and podcasts, they drive this narrative that a man is supposed to be and must be brimming with vitality, ambition, and muscle until the day he dies at 90.
And if you're not, if you're feeling a bit tired in your 50s, you're not just aging, you're beta, or you're sick, or you're failing at being a man.
Right, and what often happens is that the root cause isn't the hormone at all. It's a poor diet, it's too much alcohol, it's a lack of purpose or community, it's loneliness. But it is so much easier to get an injection to chase a feeling than it is to do the hard work of actually fixing your life.
That is a profound point. We're reaching for a chemical solution to what might be an existential or a lifestyle problem. But for some men, the chemistry itself can be uniquely dangerous because of their job. Let's talk about the firefighter example. This is fascinating and scary.
This is a critical occupational hazard that needs more attention. Firefighters are what we call tactical athletes.
Right.
When they are fighting a fire, they're subjected to two extreme physiological stressors simultaneously: intense heat and profound dehydration.
And we know from the data that one of the most common side effects of TRT is that it thickens your blood.
It causes polycythemia, an increase in your red blood cell count, which raises your hematocrit, thicker, more viscous blood. Now just do the math in your head. You take a man with chemically thickened blood, you dehydrate him severely, which reduces the plasma volume of his blood, making it even thicker, and you put him in an environment of extreme heat, which further stresses his cardiovascular system.
You are building the perfect storm for a blood clot in real time.
Exactly. The risk of having a stroke or a heart attack right there on the job skyrockets. So for these specific professions, this idea of optimization isn't just risky, it can be acutely fatal.
It's a sobering thought. We also need to touch on women, because testosterone is often called the male hormone, but that's a misnomer. Women have it too, and it's important for them.
They absolutely do, and it is vital for their health and well-being. The 2019 Global Consensus Statement on Testosterone Therapy for Women really helped clarify the science here, but it also put up some important guardrails.
What did it say?
It said that testosterone is not a wellness tonic for women. Despite what some private clinics might claim, there is currently no good evidence to support using it for women's bone health or their cognitive function or just for general well-being.
But it does have one specific proven use case.
Yes. For HSDD, hypoactive sexual desire disorder in postmenopausal women. For women who have a distressing loss of libido after menopause, a low dose of testosterone has been proven to be safe and effective. But that's it. The wellness clinics that are prescribing it for everything under the sun are getting way ahead of the science.
And finally, let's talk about the young guys, because there's a fertility crisis quietly unfolding here.
This is a genuine tragedy that I see in my practice far too often. You have young men in their 20s and 30s taking testosterone for gym gains. They get it from a buddy or from one of these online clinics that doesn't ask the right questions.
And they don't realize the consequences.
They don't realize that taking exogenous testosterone from outside your body is a potent male contraceptive.
It completely stops sperm production.
It shuts it down cold. Remember that HPG axis. When the brain sees all this external testosterone, it stops sending the LH and FSH signals. And without FSH, the testes stop making sperm. We have young men in their prime reproductive years sterilizing themselves, and they don't even know it until they and their partner try to start a family and can't.
And they just assume they can stop taking it and everything will come back to normal right away.
Usually it does, but not always. And sometimes it can take 6 months, a year, even longer for the system to restart. For any young man considering this, you should be looking at alternatives like HCG or clomiphene, which are drugs that kickstart your own natural production, rather than replacing it and shutting down your own factory.
It really just comes down to informed consent, doesn't it? Knowing exactly what you're signing up for and what the consequences are.
It does. In this field, knowledge truly is safety.
So bringing this all together, it's been a huge journey. We've covered the HPG axis, we've debunked the heart attack myth, we've highlighted the power of fat loss, and we've warned about the dangers of the online pill mills. If you had to summarize the story of testosterone in medicine over the last decade, what would you say?
I would say we have moved from a decade of fear to an era of understanding. Testosterone is an incredibly powerful tool. It is not a magic wand. It requires respect. It requires monitoring. You have to check that blood pressure. You have to check that hematocrit. You have to check that PSA. And most importantly, it requires a solid foundation of health habits. You simply cannot out-inject a bad lifestyle.
That feels like the perfect takeaway. Normal is a huge range, and chasing a number on a piece of paper is far less important than chasing actual holistic health.
Well said.
Before we wrap up, thank you to all our partners, sponsors, and scholars who made this podcast and the research are possible. We're truly grateful for your support.
And to our listeners, thank you for being part of this journey with us. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe and follow Stack Studios for more informative content. And support us on Patreon.
Until next time, stay curious, keep learning, and let the search for wisdom guide you forward. Have a great day.